Right, folks, how's things? Enda Varley here, joined by Steven Poacher this week to go through the games now next week. We're here, business side of the championship now. Kerry, Tyrone, obviously Saturday. I'm on him. Jerry, Cork, and Dublin, and Mayo. So, Stevie, how's the form, man? How are you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad, and I'm just glad I have a dodgy pen in the TV box that I can watch GA go at the weekend, because I wouldn't be able to see the games on Saturday otherwise.
Lads, yeah.
I'm a busy Saturday. The week is playing football in the Fela on Saturday, so I'll get up the road for the matches. But I know it is a pity. It's a pity. I know, Joe's gone off and won there, Brawley, when he gets the bit between his teeth. He's hard to stop. But he does make some valid arguments. And the fact that Dagley McBennett, is a director of GA Go, and is also the head of RT Sport. It's astonishing that this hasn't been called out long ago, and it's astonishing that the association has turned a blind eye to it as well. I know that Larry McCarthy obviously shunned the question a few weeks ago when he was asked the question. But I'll give you one example, and it's sort of a real life one too. Father's coming back from holidays today. He's away for a week with my mother, and he's 76. So he rings me up from the holidays. He says, "Geez, I'm looking forward to those quarterfinals, and probably not fit to go for a full day in Croke Park anymore. We used to love going, but they still travel, and then steps and Croker and all that carry on. But he says to me, are they on TV?" And I says, "They're on that at GA Go." And for fuck's sake, he says, I can't fucking get that, But that's just one example, another friend of mine as well, whose father couldn't get it on his phone, and he was in hospital. God love him, and he was trying to get it on his phone last weekend, couldn't get it in. As if I'm making these things up. They're actually, it's hard to access for a lot of people. They are hard to access, So
yeah,
it's not.
I read somewhere today with Kerry. Kerry have played 6 times the championship, and they've been only shown once on RTE, the All Ireland champions. So it's fucking
not good enough.
It's annoying though. It is annoying. Look, I suppose getting back to last week's games, any surprises there, Stevie? Or do you think? Did they pan out the way we were kind of talking? I suppose I had Roscommon and Cork. We say Cork edged this. The games are tight now, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I had a funny feeling. Like I said last week, obviously I had a feeling for the teams that were coming in, having won the previous week. Cork obviously beat Roscommon. I did have a sneaky feeling for Cork last weekend, just based on the fact that Roscommon seemed to have sort of peaked nearly for the National League, and that obviously really was a huge priority to stay in Division 1. And sometimes when you're coming off that elation that high, and then having that defeat to Kildare, obviously, left them, a little bit vulnerable heading into the Cork game. And look, Cork at home as well, they were outstanding last week. We'll obviously talk about them and Derry in a bit. But just basically, on last weekend, I thought Kildare, yet again, just sort of left it behind them again, just sort of that ruthless killer instinct in front of goal, missing chances, missing goal chances. Yes, there was obviously a debate over the winning score from Conor McCarthy when initially there was a mark taken, and then he sort of fell, and people actually didn't even pick up on the fact when he fell, he actually grounded the ball, so it should have been actually a free out for touching the ball on the ground. No one really picked up.
The free against Kevin Feely as well was soft enough, Stevie.
Yeah, it was and then obviously at the very end, then and look, Jerome Henry had a bad day at the office, and it's probably worth noting one of the highlights of last weekend from an official performance was Brendan Colley. In the Cork Roscommon game, I thought he was absolutely outstanding. I thought the fact that he let the game flow as well, I thought was hugely enjoyable, because yourself and the supporters, coaches, players, they want a game that's allowed to flow and allowed to be free, and that will have a bearing as well. Obviously, on the games this weekend is the refereeing, and no Colley's refereeing Kerry and Tyrone, which doesn't really need much more space, but it could spice it up nicely. But look, the other game, Tyrone and Donegal, I suppose I was bigging up Donegal here last week, and obviously Fortress Ballybuffet probably isn't Fortress Ballybuffet any longer, and I think the fact that Aidan O'Rourke stepped down, probably one of the quickest, resignments from an inter-county manager ever after a game, and I would say Aidan and the likes are delighted to get out, and run for the hills. But no, so look, a difficult season for Donegal on and off the field, and I suppose Tyrone are just hard to gauge where they're at. Like, they don't seem to be showing really any identifiable consistency in their play, but they looked really sharp the other day. And I suppose looking at their forward line of Myler, the Canavans, Con Kilpatrick, Brian, there's a lot of pace to the team as well there, and then also as well added, that's a lot of experience in their team, defensively, particularly their full back line of McKiernan and Hampsey and McNamee. They're dogs, they're absolute dogs, and dogs of war. Two Coal Island men in there as well, McKiernan and Hampsey. And I know historically, Coal Island would be a very, very traditional championship team and very hard to beat, and stubborn and really, really difficult defensively. So look, it's probably last weekend probably didn't really have a huge amount of surprises. I don't think Cork beating Roscommon was like a manic surprise. No. Because obviously the circumstances of where the game was played as well, and then onto your own county as well. Galway playing Mayo. I think probably it was a tired Galway team, without making excuses for them. But losing Comer obviously was a huge blow to them. We have since heard that Shane Walsh has been carrying an injury as well. So just probably a Galway team that maybe just were running on a wee bit of empty from the games that they played, and look, Mayo gambled, and you can chat about them too, but they probably gambled a little bit with their changes last week, and it paid off,
Yeah, what's your take on starting Sean Kelly and leaving him there? Like, Comer was gone after 13 minutes, obviously. They had the breeze, obviously. I just thought probably Porrick got his, obviously the team is picked, and it's very hard to go against that Finnerty. Like, yourself, if you're bringing on your shooters in the second half against that gale force breeze, like, I know myself back in the day, I know for a fact Killian came on from Mayo, and he would have been praying before the toss that, Mayo would be fucking shooting against the breeze in the first half, so, Mayo obviously, first ball he got, he fucking turned him and put it over the bar, so, the forwards are going to be thinking like that, so it's very hard, the Sean Kelly thing.
It's a difficult decision. And Salt Hill, people have known Salt Hill twice, actually involved in a game there a couple of times, and there is a significant breeze in Salt Hill. People probably don't realise there's a significant breeze, and on a real summer's day, as there could be a 10, 12, 14 mile an hour wind, coming down the field, which is a huge significance for place kicking, for kickouts. I seen Gleeson stayed out at half time to practice kickouts into the wind to see where that was an indication and a sign as well of how strong the elements were. And then it's unfortunate too, because it probably left the game, very, very obviously a game of two halves, and we didn't really get probably the fireworks that we were expecting in that game,
Yeah, I'm still. With Galway, obviously injuries coming in. I was saying that during the week. I did fancy Mayo to edge it, but obviously the draw they got against Dublin now this week could be another story here. I just thought we say Mayo. I thought McGreen's goal was fantastic. The way he cut through the 1-2 with Ado, it was really cut through the whole blanket defence again. Showed up Sean Kelly for what he was in the day. He was struggling, personally, I know he's captain. He's a captain of the team, and he's a leader. But you have to be, to me, that's a real insult to the guys on the 26 or outside the 26 there, where a man is fucking he's carrying himself. Yeah, you cannot get away with an inter-county game, Stevie. You know yourself. I know this. If he was about 60%. Ready to go there for that game, he was exposed. They tried to play him as a sweeper, but for that goal he was really exposed. And again, Comer was gone. He got a point over Jason Doherty in the 13th minute, and I'd say he pulled the hamstring after that. You could tell. I watched him the play or two after that, and he hardly moved the ball. He was actually he was limping, so he was gone after 13 minutes as well. So look at yeah, as you said, there was a game of two halves. I thought Mayo probably the wise in the first half. Probably Galway told obviously it affects them going into the second half. Having a 5-point lead going in at half time wasn't enough against that breeze. Moving on to the Dublin game here. Obviously that's kind of the headline game. Well, it's Kerry and Tyrone are obviously a very close second here, but. The media obviously are grabbing onto the Dublin Mayo game. Obviously, the last 10 years has been that rivalry there. Well, how do you feel? How do you feel that's going to go?
It's probably stroked up a lot of memories for people. A lot of epic encounters. I think I was nearly at every one of them, watching every one of them. They were just, even the atmosphere in the stadium in a lot of them, and it was just unbelievable. I'm sure it was phenomenal to be involved in some of them as well. But like, I'm looking at this Dublin team, Enda, and I was looking at their team that beat Sligo. Like, they came in with a win. They're coming in with a win, 323 to 0-8. They humbled Kildare. They did a poor result at home to Monaghan. They hammered Louth in the Leinster final. They're a Dublin team that you don't really know just yet where they are, and how far maybe they've fallen from where they were peak-wise. But at the same time, Cluxton's back in goals. Their defence at the minute, and last week they had Mick Fitz, they had Merchant, they had Howard, they had Small. Serious experience there, serious medal count. Fenton, McCarthy, middle of the field. Scully, for me, throughout the last 8-9 years, has been one of the most consistent wing forwards, in the country. He knows how to play the role very, very well. Obviously, Sean Bulger's now about in his 4th or 5th year, maybe, with them. It's not as if he is, a newbie. Obviously, you could argue that Lee Gannon and Newcombe are sort of newer players, but they still have a bit of experience under their belt the last couple of years. But their full forward line, Enda, Small, Con, and Kilkenny. With Mannion and McCaffrey, the possibilities coming off the bench there as well. Obviously Pascal played the last day. They still have a phenomenal array of talent. They still have a phenomenal medal count, which is everything when it comes to these big days and it comes to these big situations where, you need to know how to win to get over the line. They went in against Kerry last year. People are writing them off. Kerry beat them by a point, and it took a monumental free kick from Shawnee O'Shea 7 minutes in injury time to beat them. And they had no Con Kilkenny, they had no Con O'Callaghan that day, which was a major impact in the day. And the difference in the day probably was Clifford. So they're getting in this weekend, and I'm looking at Mayo, and I'm looking for Mayo's marquee forwards, and I'm looking for Mayo's real potent strike force that's going to really, cut Dublin open. I don't know, and if it's there, and that's no disrespect to Mayo. And I'm looking at a number of things. I'm looking at Colin Reap, how he was put under serious pressure from Cork. Dublin are the masters of the 4-4-4 press. The 3 backs of 4. They dismantled Louth in that Leinster final. They went really after them, really aggressively. I think they're going to go after Reap on Sunday. I think they're going to go after him high and hard. Have Mayo got the capabilities in the middle of the field to win primary ball against Fenton and McCarthy? It's hard to know, but I think the winning of the game could be this. And I'll tell you another thing. It's an interesting one. Stephen Cluxton probably hasn't been fully tested yet either. Okay, when we go back to Cluxton in his absolute plum, when everyone was afraid of him, and Jim McGuinness talked about watching 90 minutes of footage of just kickouts, and he couldn't find a formula, he couldn't find a system, because the whole thing about Cluxton, special about Cluxton, was he used to just say, "You move and I'll find you," and a mistake didn't faze him, and they had plenty of out kickouts, etc. But this is not Stephen Cluxton in his prime, in it, right? And there's probably a little bit of distances come off his kickouts, and Mayo were the one team back in the day, back when they were in their prime, who actually went after them. Rochford was involved, Buckley was involved as coaches. They will obviously think this is an area where we can go after him as well, So the 2 kickouts could be decisive,
I'll counter that though, Steve. You're going back to the times where we say Shamey, Tom Parsons, Barry Moore in midfield, or I don't. The problem here is I don't see. We'll say Galway made hay with Mayo in terms of the midfield battle last day. As you say, Fint, like this is going to come down to the middle third test here. And you're talking like Fint and McCarthy over if Stephen Cohen and Jim O'Connor started from midfield for Mayo. Like I just can't. Like even look at Mayo will press, but like if I'm Stephen Cluxton, I'm just going to be hitting Fint and McCarthy every day of the week.
Yeah. I suppose the only other thing is you're robbing Peter to feed Paul, but is there an opportunity then maybe to bring O'Shea out to the middle of the field, to sort of try and counteract that lack of physicality and sight?
Well,
again,
the thing, like Matty, like we say, Matty Duran was dropped, and Matty was Mayo's #1 midfielder here. The problem is, and you touched on this, Stevie, like Mayo literally in the league, they're consistent. The players, we say, the Ryan O'Donoghue's, the Matty Duran's, they're all playing 8 out of 10, 8 9s out of 10. Now that performance has dropped down to, I'm going to say, a 5 or a 6 here. And the consistency has dropped, and I just can't see. We see even a big one for me is, you know yourself, starting off the team, and Jack O'Connor did this with Kerry last year with Ty Morley. Like Mayo persisted with Conor Loftus all year, and when it came down to the crunch, they shipped him off here. So they have Jason Doherty, who was a half forward all his life, playing centre back, one of the most pivotal positions on the pitch here. And like, yes, and even during my days, I'll always remember Jason for probably being the best tackler in the Mayo squad here. But you know yourself, positional sense for a centre back, cutting out that ball, like it's a completely different position here. And that's another pivotal position where I'm kind of scratching my head here, hoping that things will go well for Jason on Sunday here. And you're playing against the Dubs, like. So like that's
you're hoping that it'll work, and you're not convinced that it's and that's the thing as well. It sort of baffled me there the other day on Sunday in Saliham when those changes were made to come away from obviously what you've been doing all year, and and to do something completely different, like obviously was huge, like. But no, I just think, and one of the things as well, and you brought this up early in our shows way back in the National League. You were worried about Mayo's inability to break down a structured defence, and Mayo's inability to sort of orchestrate a structured score, when they needed to. And they're coming up against one of the trendsetters when it came to the basketball style zonal defence. And Dublin will be seriously well organised, as they always are. They'll be stubborn defensively. Watching them just this year, my only concern is, are they coming in undercooked? But then on the flip side of it, you talked about the injuries Galway carried into the Mayo game. We don't know what effect that game has had on Mayo from a physical perspective. We don't know how many people are nursing knocks. Like, you go to training on Tuesday night, there's not going to be too many of your starting 15 training. They're going to be recovering. They're going to be in ice baths. They're going to be stretching. They're going to be doing a little bit of rehab. And I just feel that maybe the Dubs, Derry, Armagh and Kerry, they've probably had the opportunity to do a significant amount of work over the last 2 weeks, and not peak's the wrong word, but just cook nicely for this weekend,
But like I was actually doing the matchups today. If it's the same team, now I'm not sure when the same team start for Mayo the next day here, but like, we'll say if the same team start and the same team Dublin starts from Sligo, we say Paddy Durkin, Basquel, Jason Doherty, Bugler, Owen McLaughlin and Scully. That's going to be the matchups here. So like, you're talking, I'd probably give the nudge here to Paddy Durkin over Basquel, although Basquel's having probably his best year with the Dubs so far, but he can blow hot and cold, especially in big games. Jason Downey and Bugler. I'd have to go with Bugler here because Jason's inexperience of playing centre back. Owen McLaughlin, Scully. That's probably a tie to me here. Like, and then on the other side, you have Sam Callahan probably going on Kilkenny, McBreen on Con, and Coyne and Paddy Small here. And to be honest with you, like, that Dublin full forward line is worrying me here now, to be honest. And looking on paper, that like, and then they have fucking Mannion and Jack McCaffrey to come off the bench here. Now look, I know, and then obviously the midfield battle, Fenton and McCarthy, Jim O'Connor and Steve McCone. Like, I just like Steve McCone is a makeshift midfielder. He's not a midfielder, Stevie. Like, he's like Matty Ruan is. It's an issue here now. If he doesn't pull some sort of form, come Sunday, like, or if he has to have a massive impact coming off the bench here. If he's coming off the bench, or if he's starting, this lad has to go 8, 9 out of 10 for Mayo to have a shot here, because middle third is really causing me kind of headaches here, or looking at it thinking Mayo could be in trouble here. Like,
no, I agree. Totally agree with you. And I think that's the standard thing for me when I'm sitting looking at the Dublin team here in paper. The standard thing for me, as you say, is the quality, the experience, and the know-how in that full forward line. And the physical strength as well. And that like Cohen, Kieran Kilkenny and Paddy Smith are all strong, aggressive players, can win their own ball, can create something out of nothing. And I think, I've gone back to this numerous times before. I think if Conor O'Callaghan's on the field last year, Dublin win the All-Ireland. The All-Ireland. And that's how close it is, and I just think that they've been sort of probably written off a bit this year. The National League, they tiddled through the National League. They got to a National League final. Any games they had to win this year, they had to win. They've won convincingly. They had to win the Leinster final. They dismantled Louth. They had to win the National League final, and they absolutely battered Derry, scoring 4 goals. They had to win last weekend convincingly to top the group, and they dismantled Sligo by 25 points. And I think I've probably seen enough to sort of say that, you know, for me, I'm going to head to Dublin this weekend.
Yeah, no, I look at for again. If Mayo were to win this game, Stevie, as I said before, look at the midfield battle. As I said there, Matthew would have to come in and have a massive game. Jeremy O'Connor would have to have a massive game. Like that, our full forward line was say Ryan, Ado, and Tommy Conroy. Tommy Conroy has been playing very well the last 2 games. His pace is absolutely frightening. It's like a fucking greyhound going. He's an absolute fly. Like, as a cornerback, I'd say looking at this fucker coming at you, I'd say it's a nightmare. But he's so direct, and he's electric to watch here. Like these 3 players from Mayo, Ryan, Ado, and Tommy in the full forward line, they have to have huge games. And then you're talking the likes of Jordan Flynn, Carney, Ken McLaughlin pulling the strings if he starts in the forward, and then Jeremy O'Connor and Cohen or Matthew Rand, whoever it is. Them 5 players there around that middle third, they have to have fucking huge games. I'm talking 8, 9 out of 10. And they have to, for Mayo to win this game, they have to break even around that middle third. And if they don't, it's going to be curtains. Galway, if it's going to be like the Galway game, they're not going to beat Dublin that way. As in, they didn't break even. Galway won that battle. So I'm with you on this. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm probably going to say Dublin by 3 or 4 points here, unless Mayo dramatically improve here. I just think they've kind of plateaued in their performances. The last probably, you know, Kerry game seems a long way away here, but you know, the consistent throughout the league. But they haven't, you know yourself, Stevie, Kerry last year, they obviously won the league, and then they kind of went up another level after that. Mayo kind of plateaued from their league final, in my opinion, apart from that Kerry performance. But look, I suppose we're looking at the other massive game, Kerry and Tyrone. That's going to be tasty here now, I have to say. I'm looking forward to this one, I have to say.
Yeah, look, there's never been a bad one. You know, particularly in Croke Park, there's fireworks. You know, there's been history there. You know, obviously Paddy Tally's connection with Kerry as well. Is, you know, it'll probably not have gained much traction, you know, this week or whatever. But it's a significant advantage to have within the camp, you know, because he's obviously someone who knows Tyrone football very well, being a Galway club man. Probably watching a lot of club football in Tyrone. He'll have the ins and outs of all those players. He'll have worked with a lot of those players at St Mary's University in Belfast as well. Myler won a Sigerson Cup with them, actually. When they won their first ever Sigerson Cup, Myler was a big part of that team, McGeary. But look, for me, this is a game that's a little bit similar in an area of weakness that we identified in the Dublin Mayo game. I think the midfield battle is going to be very interesting. Yeah. I think Colin Patrick and Brian Kennedy showed the last day out that they're a really significant force in the middle of the field. You know, they're 2 phenomenal athletes. They're 2 big, very powerful, athletic men who can cover ground, but who can also compete in the aerial stakes as well. I think the referee's got a significant influence here. Brendan Cawley, I think, is a brilliant referee. He refereed last week's game tremendously well, and one of the identifiable features of his refereeing style is he will let it flow, and he will make a player earn a free kick, and that will just be right up Tyrone's alley. If Tyrone can start the game with a manic intensity and a bite and an aggression, I know last weekend Tomás O'Shea talked about Tyrone, you know, they just, when they have a bit of needle about them and a bit of bite, a bit of spice, it's nearly like you know, needing a cause. You know, people from outside the 6 counties would probably look at the Nordies and say, you know, you have a chip on your shoulder, you know, and there's a paranoia exists in the north, you know, for a long time, but there is a real chip and an edge in Tyrone when they get going, you know, and you can imagine them circling the wagons and, you know, talking about Kerry and talking about Clifford. And go back to the club game. Stewartstown played Fossa, and Fossa were beating everyone off the park, like, and Stewartstown could have won that game, like, you know, but it was just, it had a real Tyrone Kerry feel to it, the sendings off, the tackles, you know, the aggression, and I think this is going to be really, really spicy, and I really do. I think a lot will hinge on who picks up Seanie O'Shea and who picks up Clifford. Shawnee O'Shea 1-8 the last day. David Clifford 2-4. Them two players are obviously two special talents. I remember years ago going down to Kerry. Myself, Marie, the two girls went down, and we were there for 4 or 5 days. We're sitting in a restaurant having a bite to eat, and of course, football is just religion down there. And we were chatting and talking away, and this lad David Clifford was coming through at schools football, and you'd heard whimpers of him and how good he was. I think he was only maybe 15, 16 at the time. And the guy in the bar says, he says, I'm telling you now, he says, we have a better one. He says, we have a boy called Shawnee O'Shea. He says, he is phenomenal, you know. And like, they had rated Shawnee O'Shea, you know, as highly as Clifford when he was coming through at underage level. So, you know, the matchups in those two are going to be extremely interesting. As I said before, you know, Tyrone have those dogs of war at the back. You know, your Hempseys, your McNamees, they will relish this end. They will relish coming to Croke Park, being massive underdogs. You know, Niall Morgan's an experienced goalkeeper. They've had some really good days in Croke Park. They've had some bad days as well. But I think the one thing that impressed me the last day, the standout thing for Tyrone against Donegal, was the flexibility they had in their attack. You know, they had Myler playing with a bit of form again, and McGeary. They had the two Canavans, you know, that Darren McCurry, you know, really, really hard forwards to match up. And I would say this weekend it's going to be a match-up nightmare for Jack O'Connor, because who does he match up? Like, who does Paul Murphy pick up? Paul Murphy is not, for me, an out-and-out, really dogged defender. You know, who does Tom O'Sullivan pick up? Who does Jason Foley pick up? You know, so those are all questions that they're going to have to ask, you know, and it's a match-up nightmare. It's a match-up nightmare. But I think if you can stifle the influence of Clifford and Shawnee O'Shea, I don't know where Kerry are going to get, you know, enough scores to beat Tyrone, because this Tyrone team will relish coming to Croke Park, and they're full of pace. They're full of pace.
You're probably talking there, Steve, with the matchups. You probably would. We'll say the likes of Paul Murphy might play as a sweeper, like Matty Donnelly usually comes out the field. Like to me, the two Canavans, McCurry, Croke Park is made for these three players here. Like, they're born to be playing in Croker here with their pace and just directness. I can't wait to see the three of them in action, to be honest with you. You're probably talking Jason Foley, Thomas Sullivan. They'll go on either McCurry or Derek Canavan. Like, you know, with Clifford on the other side, like Clifford, Shawnee Shea is showing a bit more form the last few weeks, the last few games he's had. The last couple of games he's had, definitely compared to the start of the year, he was quite disappointed for his standard of standards he set in the previous years. Like, who are you talking here with David and Sean on Tyrone's side? Like McKernan, McNamee, Hamsey, who would you fancy there for that?
I think McNamee and Hamsey, I think, could be the two. You know, I think they could be the two. I know Michael O'Neill's playing at 6. I don't know if he'll pick Shawnee O'Shea up, but they could be the two that tag those two men. But, you know, the midfield battle, you know, O'Connor and Jack Barry against Colin Kilpatrick and Brian Kennedy. It could be decisive. It could be decisive part of the game. Really, you know, for me, if Colin Kilpatrick and Brian Kennedy are playing well on Saturday, I think Kerry could struggle. I think Kerry could really struggle. You know, Tyrone will have to get after the kick out, force them to go long, force Shane Ryan to go long. You know, because Kerry are missing that real out-and-out ball winner. You know, David Moore to go up and feel the ball. And look, you got a bit of stick. You know, about saying Kerry wouldn't get past the quarterfinal, and you get a bit of stick for saying maybe they haven't unearthed too many new options, but they haven't. I'm looking at their team here now, and I'm looking at their squad. You know, the subs the last day: Barry Dan O'Sullivan, Brian O'Begley, Rory Murphy, Stephen O'Brien, Michael Burns. Like, they don't have anything there really that's, you know, standing where you're saying, Jesus, you know, like massive amount of options there, you know. So they're still relying on Paulie Clifford, Adrian Spillane, Tony Brosnan. They're still relying on those players, and I just don't know where they're at. Now, they beat Laois 5-24 to 0-11 the last day out. Very similar situation to Dublin, I suppose. You know, in that they had one poor game. Kerry had that one poor game against Mayo, and then they had two, you know, quite impressive wins then. You know, and you're sort of thinking to yourself, right, you know, are they coming in lovely and cooked and perfectly set for this? But Tyrone just coming out of last weekend, Tyrone probably needed that last weekend. They needed that win, needed that momentum, that Deganis, you know, and look, you know, it's so hard to know where Tyrone are at, and that's the thing, that's the beauty of all these games. Actually, they're so difficult to call because we don't know if the advantage is going to be with the 4 teams who have been sitting waiting, or the advantage is going to be with the teams with momentum. That's the big thing. But certainly for me, Kerry are going to have their hands full this weekend. Hands
but
full.
Like, I know I did get a bit of stick for saying that to you, but that's like people take it very personally, as in like if you go against one of their teams, obviously Kerry are All-Ireland champions, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful here. I'm just going through the history of the last 10 years where All-Ireland champions come through the next year, and what's their league? The league campaign, Stevie, as you know yourself, shows an awful lot of signs whether or not that team is going to go on and win the All-Ireland or not. And this year for Kerry, they've shown the signs that they're not the same team as they were last year. Now, for whatever reason that is, we're on about and not unearthing too many players, which, as you said, they haven't really like, and that's a problem here. You know, it's as you know yourself, like we said this before, it's like a virus going through your team here. If you get comfortable, individuals get comfortable here, well then their performance, human nature, that level of performance will drop here. So that's what I can see from this Kerry team here. Now look at. I could be completely wrong here, but look, they've got Tyrone. Obviously, that was probably the worst draw they could have gotten here, in my opinion, because to me, Tyrone match up very well with Kerry here. As you said, the midfield battle, I have to give Tyrone the edge here in the midfield battle, and I really think the Tyrone full forward line with Rory Canavan, they're going to cause serious issues here with that Kerry full back line. They really are. And I'm looking at the subs here. Now, granted, Tyrone don't have too many subs. Like they brought on Frank Burns and Richie Donny the last day. I'm not sure. Is McShane gone? Is he? He's gone off the squad. Is he?
Yeah, McShane's off the squad.
He's off the squad. Yeah. So he's now he would have been a fucking massive option on Saturday here. But I'm looking at excuse me, Kerry subs as well. They have Brian O'Brigley came in, Stephen O'Brien came in, Micheál Burns came in. Barry Don O'Sullivan came in for Jack Barry the last day. That's obviously the third choice midfielder here. Look at David Moore, obviously retired this year, and look at David Moore didn't start every game last year. But you know what he did do? I bet he bet the fuck into Barry and Jim O'Connor in Kerry training, the AVBs, the weeks coming up to the games here. And he set a standard for them boys. He wanted that jersey. So that's competition, and that drove them two boys on. They're to me. Go on.
You talked there, Enda, about winning back-to-back All-Irelands. In 89 and 90, Cork won back-to-back All-Irelands, right, in 89 and 90. From 1990, if you take out the Dublin six in a row, who were unique, right? They were unique. But since 1990, outside the Dublin six in a row, so you're talking about 34 years, right? You're talking about in the last 28 years, only one team has done back-to-back. That was Kerry in 06 and 07, No other team has done back-to-back. So it's an extremely difficult feat to accomplish, back-to-back All-Ireland titles. There's so many variables have to fall your way. Like last year, Kerry won the All-Ireland last year with a free, a absolute monster of a free kick in the last minute, in the last kick of the game from Seanie O'Shea, the last kick of the game, right, a monster of free kick. And in the final, Galway had massive momentum when the free kick was given against them right in front of me. I was sitting in the Cusick watching it right in front of me. It was never a free, and the decision was reversed, free in, and it was a massive call from Sean Herson, massive call, and that changed the momentum of that game, because Galway could very, very perceivably easily have gone down the field and taken the lead in the game for the first time. So listen, it certainly is a very, very difficult to win one, never mind win back-to-backs, and I just have a funny feeling that in this weekend, that throne of that mentality and that psyche of they haven't had a phenomenal year. But I said this a number of weeks ago, and I don't know if you remember this on a couple of the shows. I just had a funny feeling for Tyrone, Armagh, these counties who haven't been motoring overly well, but if they just slip through to a quarter-final, anything's possible. And I genuinely feel, looking at this, there's 5 teams can win the All-Ireland here. There's 5 teams can win the All-Ireland.
I have 3 Northern teams in the semi-finals. Someone said that to me when I called out my predictions.
I hope you're right.
But it's look, time will tell here. One more point on this game before we move on here. Tyrone, how do you think they're going to set up here in terms of? Do you think they're going to let Kerry have the kick out? Do you think they're going to play really defensive? Do you think they'll push on more? What's your reading on this?
I think there'll be a bit of both. I think they'll press when they get opportunities to press. I think they'll back Kilpatrick and Kennedy. Tyrone's Achilles heel in the noughties obviously would have been, Tyrone's Achilles heel in the noughties that would have been labelled at them was they didn't really have a massive midfield and they relied on turnovers and stuff like that. But this year they have that physicality and they have that size and strength, to win their own ball. And even going back to their team in 2018, like it was really only Colin Kavanagh as an out ball that they had, and once that was negated, they struggled to win, primary ball from long kick out. So I do feel Tyrone will want to go after Shane Ryan, I think they'll definitely take chances. And I think Kerry, it's in their DNA and to press, I think they're going to press a lot of kick outs as well. So look, it'll be interesting, but I think it's very, very hard in the modern game to press every single kick out. But certainly Cork have proved over the last number of weeks that when you do press, you get rewards, and sort of clutch moments, those key moments, rather than drop off and hand the team a free opportunity to work a structured attack. Get after it, and give yourself the opportunity to win a ball. And because you see in these games, and double and treble scores could be huge. If you're in a game where it's 10-9, 10-all, 11-10, 11-all, if you could go from 11-all to 14-11 in 3 or 4 plays, all of a sudden you have a massive advantage in the game. It's nearly like a tennis match. If you break the serve and you have the ball, and then you're, it's huge. It's huge. It's absolutely huge.
So, what are you going to say? How are you going to call this one?
I'm going to go for Tyrone to win this narrowly.
Well, my prediction a few weeks ago, I had to go with Tyrone here. So, look, it could be, to be honest, this could be a draw. This could be a Galway Armagh game last year, to be honest. It really could. I think it's that tight, to be honest. So, look, you just don't know what fucking.
If it goes to penalties, all those soccer men and Kerry will win it. Penalty.
We shall see. The Cork Derry. The third one after the weekend here. Look at obviously Cork and Roscommon. Initially, I felt for Davy. I thought Roscommon didn't convert the big goal chances, and if they did, they probably would just snuck that game. The free at the end as well from Daly. Obviously, the kind of throw ball. I don't know how he felt. It obviously in the rule book it is a free. So look at Davy be hugely disappointed and frustrated by that and by just losing out by that little, like. So I felt for him, to be honest with you. I did. Cork though, are, in fairness, never say die attitude. They have a few dogs in that team this year, and look, that's obviously Kevin Welch's good influence of instilling that belief into that squad, like. So I still fancy Derry the weekend. I can't see past Derry here, to be honest with you.
No. I think Derry it'll be death by 1,000 cuts. I think it'll be slow. I think it'll be processed. It'll be meticulous. It'll be methodical. And that's the thing about Derry now, and they've moved on and they've grown. They've grown tactically. They've grown. Their coaching is obviously at a very high capacity. I have to give huge respect to Kieran Mina, who came in a very, very difficult situation, before the Ulster final. The group of players have shown the maturity as well to sort of park that now and move on and grow and develop and come through, a difficult group as well, where it was an Ulster minefield, and a tricky game in there against Clare as well. But listen, for me, Enda, you talked about Roscommon last week and Cork. Cork sort of obviously looked at the first half. Roscommon were playing, the style of football they've played all year, which is the slow possession game. Yeah. Obviously, when you have the ball, the opposition can't hurt you. So there was obviously an element of that as well. Keep the ball, bide their time, try and work a structured attack. And they're probably Roscommon are very early in their development for a structured attack as well. You can see that. But when Cork got after them and really, really pressed them and put pressure on them, there was a vulnerability in Roscommon's defenders, which there has been, and which I was surprised that a lot of other teams in Division 1 allowed them to dictate those sort of matters in games. But I just think this Derry team are different. Derry are one of the best teams in a 1v1 situation. There's so many good players, McKinless at the back as well, McCluskey. These guys are very, very comfortable taking a man on in a 1v1 situation. So if Cork are to press Derry could score a lot of goals. They could score a lot of goals because that won't faze Derry, and it won't faze them because they are one of the very, very best teams at creating 1v1 situations, and they're one of the very best teams in the country at exploiting those 1v1 situations. And Oren Lynch has obviously got a massive role this year to come out and play that sort of 15v14 football, because a lot of teams now are pushing 14 men inside their 45, and a lot of teams are defending with 14 men inside their 45. So to have that out ball and that +1, the likes of an Ethan Rafferty, the likes of an Owen Lynch, the likes of a Rory Began, it's a huge advantage, But for me, and I'm looking at Cork. No Brian Hurley last weekend.
Yeah,
they really Brian Hurley fit this weekend. Stephen Sherlock has been the star performer over the last 2 weekends against Mayo and Roscommon. I think Kevin Walsh's great work was obviously done behind the scenes as well. A lot of key matchups were nailed against Mayo. He would have known Roscommon very well as well. He would have probably known to get after young O'Carroll and nets as well, which they did in the second half. Put a young goalkeeper under severe pressure, with a manic press. And that's okay, against a team that's maybe coming in, with a little bit of an experience like that. But coming in against Derry, you're looking at Conor Glass and Brendan Rodgers. Now, Ian Maguire is one of the best midfielders in Ireland. There's no question about it. He's a phenomenal talent. Yeah. He was responsible for the drop on the shoulder and breaking a hole and punching a hole in Roscommon towards the end whenever Conor Daly threw the ball up. But this, for me, it's heaven for Derry. I think it's heaven for Derry because I just feel that they're so far down the road, and from an offensive point of view, there's no one in the country better than them. There is no one in the country better at breaking down a structured defence. There really is not. Their score to possession ratio is very, very high. For every 9-10 possessions, they're getting away 4 or 5 scores, and nearly 1 and 2. That's crazy statistics. Crazy statistics. Yeah. And I've been preaching from day one on this show, and you were maybe not fully convinced back in January, but I was saying Shane McGuigan for me is the top 3 forwards in this country. He really, really is. He's a phenomenal talent, and I know I can't remember who it was said it, but someone said about to stop Shane McGuigan, you stop Derry. I think that's absolute tripe. I think that's absolute tripe because you need a marquee forward, and this is where I would say if you were coming in on Sunday as Mayo, you'd be delighted if Shane McGuigan playing against Dublin on Sunday for Mayo. And that's the key thing for me. Even if you do take Shane McGuigan out of it and you double mark him, there's so many other avenues that they can hurt you. McFall, Doherty, Cassidy's having a brilliant season as well. Conor Glass can break forward from midfield. Brendan Rodgers. They've multiple options. So
still not the same as we say. I know, and I don't want to be disrespectful here. I think McGregor is a class player. He's probably a 9 out of 10 player. But the other players, you mentioned them, no disrespect to them, but we say to the Tyrones, the other options they have in the forward line, the Dublins, the Kerrys. To me, Stevie, don't get me wrong, I think Derry are probably one of the top 2 best coached teams in the country here, and I think they're maximising everything, every ounce out of that squad here. Now, I'm still, don't get me wrong here, I said that, look, they're no doubt they're in the top, they'll be in the top 4 after this weekend, they'll be in the semi-final after this weekend, and, we'll see after that here. But, I'm still not fully convinced, can they go on and win the All-Ireland with the way they play, and with apart from, if you nullify McGuigan, are the other players going to step up here? Are they going to have an 8 out of 10 game? Look at Kieran McFall is a big plus to them this year. I still have a lot of, obviously, Cassidy, Hearn, Ethan Doherty. They're all really, really good players. But are they it's the same as the Canavans, the McCurrys, the 3 or 4 boys from Dublin, the Kerrys?
No, I think the biggest problem for them last year was that Galway came in and mirror imaged them, in the semi-final, really, really mirror imaged them, and they struggled. Monaghan came into Celtic Park in the first group game and mirror imaged them, right? And they obviously struggled to get it, but they still got a result. I just think they've grown a little bit more tactically in that if a team does set up like that, they have the options now. They're also back-to-back Ulster champions, which probably doesn't get enough credit. Now, the other thing, Enda, is last year, it's a bit like Donegal when they won their first Ulster in 2011. McGuinness talks about how they were, drunk on the streets 4 o'clock in the morning, and they were partying hard, and they probably didn't really get they didn't really get the full whack in a semi-final that they probably thought they could, and then the following year they come back, won Ulster game, but they're a lot more mature, handled the celebrations a lot better, and I think that's a similar thing to Derry this year. I think last year there was, I know from up here, there was phenomenal hype around them last year, phenomenal hype, and boys writing songs and fucking statues being built and all sorts of carry on, and you look at that now and you're thinking this year they'll get through the one Ulster. I know the provincials were a little bit of a damp squib this year because they didn't really have a massive relevance on the All Ireland, but they're still back to back champions. It still primes them. It still gives them another big day. They get through a penalty shootout. And I just think that they're probably maybe not just getting enough respect. And hey, they've come in this year, Enda. Unbelievable hype about them last year because of the way they dismantled Clare in the quarterfinal, the goals they scored.
Yeah.
Unbelievable hype. They're coming in a little bit quieter this year. They're coming in a little bit quieter, and there's not an awful lot of talk about Derry this weekend. All the talks about Dublin, Mayo, Kerry, Tyrone. There's very little talk about Derry, and there's very little talk about Cork. And listen, I have to be respectful to Cork here too as well. The wide open spaces in Croke Park, the athleticism, the pace that they have.
Yeah.
They could be a thorn in Derry's side, but I think if Derry bring their A game, there's only one winner here on Sunday.
Yeah, no, obviously we don't want to be disrespectful to Cork here. I think Cork have kind of maxed out what they were going to, like, obviously the defeat to Clare was very disappointing for them in the provincials. They were like to have got to a Munster final and really went after Kerry. But I think obviously in the group stages, they only lost to Kerry by 2 points or a goal, and whatever it was, 2 points. And obviously beat Mayo in the group stages. Look, they've set the foundations down for next year here, and everything's kind of bonus territory here from now on in. Like, so, as you said there, Stevie. Look, Derry are 2 years further down the road here than Cork. Like, this is kind of year one project with Cork here, and we see where they are next year from the foundations they've laid this year. Like, so, look, I'm going to say Derry. I'm going to say Derry by probably 4 points as well, to be honest with you. I don't know what you feel.
Yeah, no, I think Derry by more than 3, yeah.
The last one then, our man Monaghan. Look, this will be an interesting one.
I think a big standout thing for me in Armagh Monaghan is straight away is the battle of the number ones. Ethan Rafferty versus Rory Beggan. I think it's going to have a major impact on the game. I do believe that Armagh will feel, particularly after the McKenna Cup this year, where they caught Rory Beggan for a couple of goals. I think Armagh will fancy going after Rory Beggan. They'll probably see vulnerabilities in Rory Beggan's kickouts. Monaghan, the old dog for the hard road, and every single narrative surrounding Monaghan seems to be the same narrative all the time. Great, unbelievable, maximising their resources, doing really well. But people also forget that the structures are really good in Monaghan. Their minors are in all out of final. Let's not forget that. Their under-20s were in an Ulster final 2 years ago. Were beaten by a very good down team, and it was unfortunately a week after young Duffy had died in the car crash. Got Lord rest his soul, and that was a massive loss. He was the captain of that team, and who's to say that team wouldn't have went on and won in All Ireland? If the young lad had been playing. But Monaghan have had a historical record of good underage success, and I don't think people probably doing their research realise that. Their school structure is still very strong as well. Their development squads are coached by good people. They have a good S&C structure in place, and that has helped Monaghan bring through, the Michael Bannigans of this world, and these boys now are stepping up. And Ryan O'Toole and these guys, they're stepping up now and replacing, the Drew Wileys, the Conor McManuses, because they can't go on forever, unfortunately, But the last day was interesting. Like Conor McManus, Ryan Wiley, Kieran Hughes, 3 stalwarts of that group, came off the bench against Kildare. Carlo and Conor McCarthy, for me, are as good half-backs as there is at the present moment in time. They're very, very hard. They're direct runners. McCarthy was an inside forward, so he has that guile when he gets into that scoring zone as well. He showed that last weekend against Kildare when he kicked the winner with the outside of his foot in clutch time. It's a really, really hard game to call. Armagh had a hugely significant win the last day. That was a massive win for Armagh. It was a massive win for Kieran McGeeney, a massive win for his management team. To go to Carrick and Shannon, you could literally say go to Galway because it was in Connacht. To travel into Connacht and beat Galway in Connacht in a must-win game was absolutely huge. And that was without Rian O'Neill. And you look at their forward line of Duffy, of Grugan, of Callum Comiskey the last day, Conor Turbot, Andrew Murnan, Stephen Campbell. They have a spread of forwards who are capable of hurting you. One thing that Armagh probably have over Monaghan is their ability to be able to mix their game up. And Croke Park is a pitch that suits a kicking style. It's a game that suits you mixing your game up. You can't just run the ball the whole time. So Armagh have it in their locker. They have the experience of the bad experience of last year, that they have the internal motivation of putting that right. And you're just wondering how much more can Monaghan dig into those deep reserves, you know, that they're digging into? They've dug in really, really hard against Derry. They dug in really hard late on to beat Clare. Clare should have beaten them. They dug in massively last weekend against Kildare, you know, to get over the line. They were beaten by Donegal at home, and I just don't know. I just think that Croke Park could be just a step too far for them. I think the pace and athleticism that Armagh have, you know, they're a very, very well conditioned team. You know, I watched them very, very closely in the semi-final against Down this year in Ulster. They dismantled Down in the semi-final just through pure and utter physicality and conditioning. You know, it was unbelievable. And the likes of Ben Creeley has been unearthed there as a big option in around the middle of the field. Kieran Mackin, very athletic as well. The one question area I have is Ethan Rafferty's kickouts and their full back line. If there's a major press from Roscommon or from Monaghan, and they really get after him and go hard and aggressive, you know, could they get some joy? Could the kick out maybe malfunction? Quite possibly. And the other thing maybe just is the big question marks maybe over Armagh's fullback line with Paddy Burns, Kieran Higgins. You know, Ian Falker's obviously an absolute warrior for them, real warrior, and has done a match-up job in the past for them. But just in Croke Park, you know, and the pace of the pitch plays, you might be just concerned slightly for them. But look, listen, Monaghan are probably the team that Armagh wanted, but at the same time, Armagh are probably the team that Monaghan wanted, and that's the beauty about this game. Again, you know, it's a very, very difficult game to call. Difficult game to call.
It'd be a huge setback for Stevie for Armagh now if they didn't get over this. In terms of the way they've been building nicely over the last couple of years. Obviously, this is the first year under Vinnie Curry for Monaghan, so it's kind of a year one project, and he's established themselves as in Division 1 status, and he's had a good, you know, decent championship run, getting to a quarter final from where they were at the start of the year, getting hockeyed first couple of league games, especially down in Kerry. I remember that game down in Kerry, and they got dismantled entirely. And look, as you said there is players coming through. It's just amazing to me. Like Conor McCarthy, as you said there, he was a corner forward, and now, you know, the half back line facing goal, you're getting on more ball. You're getting on more ball, and now you're kind of hearing the centre back is the quarterback. That's the way the language has gone here. And, you know, that was one of Mayo's kind of things with Conor Loftus this year in terms of putting him centre back. So it's amazing how teams are evolving from today's game. Like, so look, I agree with you. I just think Armagh further down the road here, and the players they have, you know, obviously to me they have a better forward line. Obviously we need to come back in there. Conor Herbert, Rory Grugan, Stephen Campbell, obviously he's a guy to come on if he doesn't start. So look, it's if this wasn't a local derby, I would say Armagh would win this kind of comfortably. I think they're I'm not going to say a much better team than Monaghan, but I think they are a better team than Monaghan here. But the fact that it's kind of local derby, it's kind of, you know, it adds a bit more spice to it. So look, it'll be, you know, as you're saying there, the boys that came on, Darren Hughes still started midfield for them the last day. So and the boys come off the bench, Conor McManus and Kieran Hughes and them sort of boys, Drew Riley. Like, so look, where do you think Armagh are going from? They are mixing their games up this year in terms of their, you know, running and kicking here and their own mass defence and their pressing, and, you know, are they going to do the same here on Saturday? It is Saturday, isn't it? Saturday this Saturday, yeah. Saturday, yes.
Saturday, yeah.
So like, is Monaghan going to play the same game as the Derry game? Is there going to be a mirror image? The two teams going to copy each other here?
Listen, Monaghan have to set up defensively. They have to set up defensively to sort of quell that Armagh forward line, because there is a lot of pace, there's a lot of athleticism in the Armagh forward line. They can hurt you. You know, particularly with Rian O'Neill back in now, he'll probably float between middle of the field, full forward. You know, there's that flexibility there. But even if you take Rian O'Neill out, they still have the likes of Turbot and Andrew Murnan inside, real good ball winners. You know, Stephen Campbell adds something different as well, different dynamic. Duffy's a powerful player as well. But look, you know, for me, and the game is now played 15v15, but it's not really 15v15, it's 15v14. So when you have possession of the ball, you know, goalkeeper coming out, Ethan Rafferty coming out, Oren Lynch coming out, you know, they're creating that extra player, you know, against these mass defences. And when a team does that, Ethan Rafferty is probably the most effective player in the country at playing the fly goalkeeper. Is he the most effective goalkeeper? No, probably technically not. And his kickouts maybe at times, haven't been, at the level of Sean Patton or a Niall Morgan. But the fascinating thing will be their influence from open play. I don't think Rory Beggan is as effective in open play. I think his kickouts are phenomenal. I think his place kicking is excellent.
Yeah.
But Rafferty brings a completely different dynamic. He's an outfield inter-county player. He will give you that wee bit extra in Croke Park. He was doing it. He's been doing it a lot more this year probably than he was last year. Armagh haven't really played any really differently to what they've been playing. I think Armagh have been hugely unlucky. I've said this for a number of weeks now. They were beaten in Kerry by a point. They were beaten a last-minute goal, a mistake from the goalkeeper against Galway in the league as well. They were very grossly unlucky to be relegated. They were very, very unlucky in the group game against Tyrone. They could have had 2 or 3 goals early in the game, didn't take them. I think if Armagh can hit a few early scores in this game, Enda, I think their confidence will grow. I think that'll give them great belief, and I think then they'll win the game, and they'll win the game comfortably if they get a few early scores. If they don't take their scores and they leave Monaghan in the game, Monaghan will do what Monaghan do. They'll hang in, and they'll be around there towards the tail end of the game when things get nervy. And listen, there's probably no better team in the country at producing something against the odds and digging it out. But the interesting thing, Enda, about this is if Armagh do come through this game and Armagh were to play Dublin or Mayo, or Armagh were to play Derry, or Armagh were to play Kerry or Tyrone, they'd probably go into the semi-final as underdogs. And that's the mad thing. They're going into this game as red-hot favourites, but they could go into a semi-final. So I actually think what you said is correct. If Armagh can get over the line this weekend, Armagh might not be too far away from winning All-Ireland. And I'm telling you that now.
We'll see. On that note, Stevie, all right, we leave it there, man. We'll talk next week.
Good man, Enda.
Go on, cheers, man. Go on. Bye.
Good luck.